Today, I'm interviewing our counselor, spouse, and we're asking questions about domestic violence. All right, here we go. What are your thoughts on domestic violence?
When I looked at your questions, the first thing that came to mind was domestic violence is almost like a disease. It doesn't discriminate. It's all around us. It's sometimes invisible and sometimes it's very apparent, but it's everywhere, and it's a real tragedy in today's homes and families.
What are some possible ways someone can seek help if they're being abused?
Are you referring to if they're a high school student, or do you mean someone that maybe is an adult out in the world, or do you mean both?
Both.
Okay.
Use on both.
Okay. In the school setting, there's a lot of resources, but they have to be comfortable coming to somebody, and that can be the biggest guardrail, that they just don't use it. Obviously, school counselor, school resource officer, a teacher that they trust and like. Friends can be good resources because then they can be the voice for the individual that's maybe too afraid to speak up for themselves. Even a lunchroom worker or a custodian is a good resource, just somebody to talk to, so maybe they can get some insight into what's going on that they can't themselves see. As far as adults out in our community, there's law enforcement, which a lot of people avoid. There's the safe house, there's ministers, there's co-workers, there's employers, there's a lot of resources in our community as well. Social services is another place to go.
Okay. What advice would you give in a domestic abuse situation?
I would encourage the individual to seek help. If there are young children involved in the relationship and the domestic abuse, they will be a target, either specifically or not. If you grow up in a domestically violent home, you may never be struck, but the hits that you see a parent getting, you're going to carry with you, and it can scar you forever, and you may think that's normal, so you will then gravitate towards a domestic violent relationship. So that's really bad. I would also say to an individual that if they're in a domestic abuse situation, they need to ask themselves, what are the benefits of being in this relationship? And they may love the person, they may think they can't do any better, but do they deserve to be struck? Do they deserve to be hit? Because you see those stories where it just continues to escalate to the point where they lose their lives. And they need to seek help with anybody. Just talk to somebody and get some help.
Is the perpetrator of domestic violence always a man?
No, absolutely not. It's embarrassing. How many guys are going to come forward and say, my girlfriend beat me up last night, or my wife knocked my tooth out? I mean, they're not going to do it, but it's happening. I mean, there are men that are in those types of relationships as well. It's just harder for them to speak out and get help.
Yeah. Does domestic violence only occur in economically disadvantaged families?
It does not discriminate. It happens in the richest of families and the poorest of families and everywhere in between. It's everywhere.
Have you noticed any trends involving domestic violence in the Mitchell community?
That was the hardest question you guys asked me. I was like, oh my gosh, trends? The only thing I could really think of is it happening in our school? Without question. I know it is. But I also think the more we talk about it, the more people that are trying to hide it get educated and better at keeping secrets. And that bothers me, because that's exactly opposite of what we want to see happen. So the trend that I'm seeing is when it's happening with our students or faculty or people in the community, they're getting better at keeping it quiet, and which makes it harder to reach out and help.
It's true. Have you ever suspected anyone being abused but been afraid to confront them?
Yes, I have been suspected of somebody being abused, and absolutely not. I've not been afraid to confront them. That's kind of a no-brainer kind of a question, yeah.
How many cases have you worked with that involve domestic abuse?
I thought about that one as well, and I would say almost too many to count. There's a lot that are going on, just a lot. And sometimes kids will come in and just want to talk, and they don't want you to do anything. They want you to keep it a secret, and unfortunately that's against the law, and we can't do that. But then we fry them, then they won't talk anymore, and so I don't know a good balance other than we have to report, and I hate that. Well, I know we have to report it, but I hate that it hurts the relationship that I have with someone that comes in and trusts me. That's what I hate, because I don't ever want to hurt my relationship.
What part does confidentiality play in the domestic violence case?
It plays a huge part, but if someone is being hurt, we have to report it. Otherwise, we will be arrested, as we should be. Because if someone comes in and says, oh, my dad slapped me around last night, but it's no big deal, it really didn't hurt much, and then a week later their father kills them, I'm liable. I should have prevented that. I should have made a call. So even though confidentiality is huge, if someone's being hurt, we are obligated morally and ethically to report it.
Okay, that concludes all my questions for you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.